If you are on Facebook, you've no doubt seen those suggestions of people that Facebook thinks you might want to friend. I have always assumed that that's because they're friends of my current Facebook friends, but that might not be all they're using. Kashmir Hill from Fusion has been on an epic journey to find out. Welcome, Kashmir.
Hey, Megan.
Thanks so much for coming on. So why did you first start delving into this story?
So last week, I met a man who said that he had been at a gathering for suicidal teens, and that the next morning when he opened Facebook, another parent who had been at the gathering was suggested to him as someone he might know. And the only way he said that Facebook could know that was that their smartphones were in the same room. And he looked at the location settings for Facebook, and they had access to his location. So I was pretty skeptical. I was like, that would be a massive privacy invasion if Facebook were using your location for friends, but I'll look into it. And I emailed Facebook, and they responded that location was a signal that they use for people you may know.
Wow. Were you surprised when they said that?
I was really surprised, just because there were so many obvious ways that could backfire. You could go to Alcoholics Anonymous and then the next day be told who the other people were who were there. You could go out to a bar and some, creepy guy is hitting on you. And then the next day, you don't give him any information, but then the next day he sends you a friend request. So yeah, there are just all these like obvious negative things that could happen. So I was really surprised. And I actually called Facebook again on Monday to say, like, you guys are really doing this? Like, it really seems like a lot can go wrong. Is there a way that users can turn this off? Do they need to turn off location? And they said, well, location is only one signal that goes into people you may know. And you would never have somebody suggested to you just based on location. And so I wrote my story. And then like 6 hours later, Facebook emailed me and said, actually, there was some confusion here. And we don't use location to suggest people you may know.
So after 2 calls and oh no, people got really upset about that. We didn't mean it. Basically, that's what they were saying.
It was really strange. I've never had a company confirm a story to me like that and then basically immediately retract it. They said the reason was that Facebook did a test at the end of last year for 4 weeks where they were using location to rank friends people you may know. And that they ended the test and they don't do it anymore, but that some people within Facebook's communication team basically didn't realize that the test had ended. So it's very strange. And the thing is, like, ever since I published the story, I've just heard so many anecdotes from people who are convinced that Facebook is figuring out their locations because, they'll recommend that they friend the secretary from their doctor's office or somebody that lives in their building or somebody they've seen at the coffee shop. And so I'm still trying to figure out how it is that those things are happening if Facebook isn't using location.
Well, so the fact that it was just a test, do you think that makes it any less egregious? They've gotten in trouble for doing tests before.
They said it was a small test that only ran for 4 weeks with a small percentage of the Facebook population. And they're pretty careful in the press statement. They said that they used location to rank people you may know, so that they might have known that from other things, whether it's mutual friends or shared, education network, you went to the same school. The thing about people you may know is we don't actually know that well what goes into it. They're pretty vague in describing how it works. And they say that the algorithm is complex and that there's many factors. And so we don't know what all those factors are. But yeah, I was surprised that they use location. But I imagine that they may get some questions from Federal Trade Commission about exactly how this was working.
Well, the funny thing to me is, like, one of the things that they say with this is that it's only in a small percentage of the user base of Facebook. That is 900 to 1 billion people. That's like, if you say, we only did it on 10%, that's 100 million people. like in a way, that is the least comforting part of their response, is that this was a small percentage of people this was tested on, because when you're talking about that big of a base, things get a little bit weird. On the other hand, I kind of understand where the benefit of this might come from. This kind of data is interesting, but man, they've got to be a little more transparent about this stuff up front and let you know that you are being used in this way. And I don't mean that in the pejorative. You know, sometimes we want to get used for cool data, but this just feels like a slight step too far over that line to me.
Yeah, I mean, we as people who think about our privacy, we shouldn't be surprised that Facebook has this information, right? I mean, they in their data collection policy, they say they collect device location, including specific geographic locations, such as through GPS, Bluetooth, or Wi-Fi signals. But what you're suggesting is it's possible that they're somehow sharing. They're not saying they're sharing our Wi-Fi signals. But they might be using that to then share information. It's complicated, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is, Facebook says they're not using location for people you may know, but they're very candid about the fact that they use location for other things. You know, they recently announced that they're going to start tracking the stores that you go to, so they can tell advertisers if, you know, the ads that you saw on Facebook led you to go to a store. And they allow advertisers to geo-target you. So there was a senator. There was an Alaskan senator targeted Department of Interior employees when she wanted them to approve funding for something that she wants to do. Somebody, a pro-life group, was targeting people at abortion clinics, trying to convince them not to get abortions using Facebook ads. So we do know that they use location for certain products. They're just saying they don't use it for people you may know.
It feels overwhelming, the amount of data that companies have about us. I mean, this reminds me of a couple weeks ago when someone was convinced that their Amazon Echo was listening to what they were saying, because then a Google search then came up for something that they had said in the room with the Amazon Echo. And to me, it's like, it's so hard to know where that stuff comes from. I mean, we give it out willingly on Facebook. You know, we're making tons of searches. We have all these devices. It's very difficult to know where this information is coming from, because we give it out so often in so many places.
I do think that's the hardest part. There are all these black boxes. We don't know how algorithms operate. We don't know what information is going in, and they're getting better and better. And so it may be, you know, a different way that Facebook is managing to connect you with the receptionist at your doctor's office. But it's just hard for us to figure out how it could be, because we just don't know what information goes into the box and how it gets analyzed in the box. We just see the results. And sometimes they're really cool and wondrous, and you know, good things come of it. And then other times they're kind of creepy. So that is the world we live in.
Why can't they just warn us? Why can't they just go, hey, we got a bunch of data we're going to check out this week for blah, blah, blah. And then we know, at least. Like, let's use the doctor's office metaphor a little bit further. If I go to a doctor's office and they say, we need to take your blood, I'm like, okay, cool. What's that for? And we're really not going to tell you what we're doing. Like, they wouldn't get away with that, right? Like, why can't Facebook? Why can't Google? Why can't all these companies just let us know? Even if we don't like it, at least say, yeah, we're planning on doing this. And then they can also test for reaction. Like, they get some important data out of reaction. And I know the internet's kind of a weird place and you're going to get reaction no matter what, but, you know, just let us know. I'd be fine with this if they told me about it. I really don't have a problem with this actual thing for me, but I can see how a lot of people would see it as a breach of their privacy.
I mean, I think a lot of times they collect data not knowing how they'll eventually use it. So the value of data only becomes obvious down the line. So I think, like, we know that Facebook has location information about us, but we just didn't know it would be used this way. And maybe Facebook didn't know how they would use it. So yeah, I mean, it would be nice if we knew every single thing that they did with our data. But honestly, if they gave you that list, it would probably be as long as the terms and conditions when you accept an iOS update.
Yeah, I'm going to make a smaller request, just that when you call them next time and then call them again, that they tell you. That's all. That's all I'm asking now. That, like, when reporters, as well known as you, call them and ask for this information, maybe they could get the right person on the phone to tell them, you know, and not go back and say, actually, well. But thank you so much for writing this. I'm a big fan of all of your work. You were the editor, Kashmir Hill is the editor of Fusion's Real Future. Great videos, great stories. You're at Cash Hill on Twitter. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on.
Thanks for having me on, Megan.
Take care.